Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Money Talks, where we explore the best ways to make your money work harder for you. I am Diego Laje. I co-host the series, and I am here with my partner in this series. This is Silvia Moschini, entrepreneur and executive producer of Unicorn Hunters, the business series that is democratizing access to investment opportunities and changing the way that entrepreneurs raise funding. Hi, Sylvie. How are you?
I'm good, Diego. Happy to be here with PJ.
Yeah, we're joined by PJ Piper, founder and CEO of FAR-UV Technologies, a company that produces a very specific ultraviolet light that kills bacteria and viruses. PJ started the company almost 5 years ago when there was a need, but not an urge to control viruses. The pandemic may have favored the company, we should note that, but there's much more to PJ Piper than, of course, FAR-UV and the company. He also has a role at Anticipate Ventures. Anticipate creates and builds businesses by identifying and incubating or partnering with innovators. It seeks to enable capital-efficient businesses and enable founder-friendly exit strategies. Among the ventures they work with are Avium Solutions, a company that developed a technology to split water into green hydrogen to use as fuel, super green company. Partnering with my brilliant co-host, Silvia Moschini, we will try to understand how PJ Piper broke the status quo in many, many ways, including how to fund his microbe fighting venture. Silvina, it's great to share this stage together, and let's begin.
Let's do it. I'm super excited because we are featuring here one of our top prospect unicorns at Unicorn Hunters in our show. And I would like to introduce you to PJ Piper. And PJ, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you again for having me. This is exciting to be on this platform. One of the most important things for us is awareness and getting the word out. So this is wonderful to be able to share our experiences, both on the financing side and a little bit about FAR-UV in particular as we move forward.
PJ, let's jump right into the discussion. We want to try to understand how this global private offering path you're seeking for FAR-UV compares to the VC or the venture capitalist way. How would you compare both roads?
Well, they're actually quite different. I spent a lot of time in investment banking before I left and started my first firm, where we raised hundreds of millions of dollars in venture capital. And there's a very specific formula and path that you take on that and types of investors that you look at. In my previous companies, they were very almost niche-oriented business to business. We were making a nanotechnology that was a high-performance insulation. It wasn't really a consumer product. And so, the connections that we often got with our venture backers were very valuable in certain industries. What makes FAR-UV completely different is that it's really applicable for everyone. It's the ultimate in shared environment virus protection. And so it doesn't matter whether you're a school or an Air Force base or the Pentagon or a hospital or somebody's home. Every building in our environment right now is not up to the new guidelines set forth by the CDC for healthy air and clean spaces. And so we provide a very unique solution that's immediately deployable, like the units behind me, either here or here. They can just be plugged into a wall, or they can be, permanently installed on the ceiling or on an upper wall to provide continuous disinfection, providing everybody within the space with the equivalent or better than an N95 mask. And so that's pretty valuable in a time where there's a lot of debate over, do we have to wear masks? Do we have to get vaccinated and all of that? And this solution requires no human compliance. Once it's in place, you don't have to worry about whether there's one person not complying or if they're just inadvertently not complying by social distancing or whatever. It helps. And look, this isn't a solution where this solves all the problems. This is another layer of protection. When the pandemic started, they didn't say social distance or wear masks or wash your hands. you're trying to do everything you can to protect yourselves. And this is another layer of protection that is perhaps less controversial and really easy to deploy and protect yourself, your family, your friends, your communities.
PJ, I would like to add something. For those that did not have a chance to watch our first episode at Unicorn Hunters, you were the first entrepreneur to be featured in our show, where you explain a little bit more about what FAR-UV is. We recommend that they go back, they watch the episode so they can learn exactly what FAR-UV does. But in a nutshell, as PJ said, is a technology that kills virus in bacteria in closed environments. Now that we are living this pandemic that seems to never end, this is extremely important. But is it only for COVID, or is it something that can solve many more issues beyond the pandemic that we are living today?
No, that's actually a great question. And Diego kind of foreshadowed that by saying we started working on this 5 years ago under contract with NASA to prevent foodborne illness, E. coli, salmonella, the things you might read about in the paper that shut down restaurants or food processing facilities. And a few years ago, we started really working closer with the Army and some of the military services around hospital-acquired infections like MRSA and C. diff and those. When COVID hit, it really didn't change our platform any, with one major exception. A lot for the past 10,000 years of recorded history, people have accepted the pathogens that lead to infectious disease as almost a factor of fate. And I think if there's a silver lining in the whole COVID scenario, it's that people realize by taking protections, a lot of people have not had the cold or flu since this thing started. And that's not because they did something magic with COVID. That's because they protected themselves with masks and social distancing and maybe a little bit more active hand washing and things like that. And so I think what people are aware is a lot of these things that have plagued us for our whole lives since we were children can be avoided. And we don't have to be sick from work, and we don't have to, potentially spread really deadly pathogens because everybody has a different immune system. But I think that awareness is the biggest difference from where we were 5 years ago or even 2 years ago to today on that. And that breaks a little bit back to your question, Diego, of why would we do a global private offering instead of a venture capital round? And I was kind of focusing the initial companies that I'd either taken public or sold to private equity were very oriented on not really the end consumer, but more the B2B, where they were there. This impacts everyone, and everyone right now has a say in how much they want to protect themselves. And so if you're going to have a business or you're going to have your school, right now the schools are asking the parents and everyone else, what do you want us to do? They're sitting on 100 in the US, so this isn't global, but in the US, there's $190.5 billion in what's called ESSER funding. It's relief funding for COVID, and the schools don't even know how to spend it. A relatively small school district is getting tens of millions of dollars, and you can only buy so many masks and bleach and iPads for remote learning before you've still got $10 million plus left over. For a fraction of that, we can clean the air and the surfaces, to really protect those students, whether they're your kids or your friends' kids or just those in your community, is really a great opportunity for that. But a global private offering is unique because we're able to spread the word. I think our episode has over 2.5 million views. Those are 2.5 million views we didn't have before, right? It's reaching an audience, and this is global. This is not a US thing. This is, there's just as much COVID risk in any corner of the globe that we're going towards. So I think that's really been a huge benefit. And what's been super interesting, I don't know if I'm off topic here or not, Diego, but what's been super interesting is there's so many, the people that have reached out, whether they become stakeholders in us as investors or not, have gotten involved. And we provide, commissions for people who bring deals that close to us. And some of the people who invested have already made more than their money back already and are continuing to build on that momentum in other schools and hospitals and other areas around them. So I think it's a really unique story. It's probably a little bit different than some of your other companies, just in the way that there are multiple ways to make money far beyond the equity investment, although I think they're going to find that to be pretty pleasing as well.
And I love that you mentioned that, sorry, Diego, PJ, because you're helping the schools to keep their children safe. You're helping the economy bounce back by securing the work environments of companies and workspaces as well. But you're also allowing people to partner up with you in your success as your shareholders, not only as your shareholders, but also as your partners, because you mentioned that they have the opportunity to co-build with you, to bring businesses and make money. So democratizing the access to investment opportunities allows people from around the world to be a part of the next big thing. And this is something that I, as an entrepreneur, I think is extremely important, because you are making them part as your shareholders or investors of the growth of your company, and they can be an active participant driving this growth as well. So what are the catch? What is the catch? Because it seems like too good to be true. So where do you see that?
I have at least one investor who said that he's so excited about it, but he's looking for the catch, and I don't know what to tell him. Like it's pretty straightforward, and what's neat about this opportunity to do these to get involved. Every investor is an ambassador of the company, right? So they're not just invested, through their money. They're invested because they probably believed in the mission to help people and help solve some of this crisis that we're in right now. Not only this one, but the fact that COVID isn't going away, and neither is the next pathogen that emerges next year, right? And so there's going to be a constant need for this. But what I found actually even interesting is there's some people who haven't invested who are so excited to get involved and have become channel partners and have referred us to their school. And their school is ecstatic because the schools don't know what to do with the money. They don't have all the answers. And the traditional means of social media or email marketing, those aren't always easy to get across, because we're also in kind of a somewhat distrustful world, right? Where it seems like there's snake oil out there and whatnot. But when people are able to hear the story, whenever they're able to know that almost, all across academia, they validated FAR UV, its effectiveness, its safety, and that it's the preferred choice of the Pentagon and our Department of Defense, and that we have national stock numbers and all the rest of this. I don't think there's a catch. I think the catch for us is awareness, because when that school board gets together and they decide what they're going to buy, if they don't know we exist, they're not going to ask for us.
And I think the world doesn't have more millionaires because many people out there think that every good opportunity is a scam. And there are great opportunities out there. And when we get in front of them, we need to act. And as individual investors, if we have the feeling about what can be a scalable opportunity and unicorn potential businesses, we have the opportunity to also have gigantic returns. So what is, in your views, the future of the company? What's in it for your investors now, in addition to the ability to help you bring more businesses and drive awareness and make money in the process? So if someone invests, let's say, $10,000 in your company today, what is what you envision as the path to success for them?
Well, there's several paths, and I think we kind of just discussed some of them. I guess first and foremost, if you look at the shared environment that the spaces that we occupy, whether it's schools or hospitals or defense facility, all the rest of these, it's about a $3.5 trillion immediately addressable opportunity where there isn't already an installed base. What exists today is HVAC units that are on the roof that are pumping in a certain amount of fresh air into our spaces. Probably about half or less than half of the air that's recommended by the CDC and ASHRAE, the HVAC organization that kind of dictates safety in spaces. So it's an immediately addressable opportunity. So what does that mean? Well, it kind of means the immediately addressable markets are vast and right there in front of us. So our challenges are associated with how fast we can scale our production capacity to meet the demand. I mean, in the example you gave of somebody who puts in $10,000, they may have a child in school or a friend with a child in school where they can get directly to a school board member. So an average school district is probably $1 million sale for us. Add up to an 8% commission, they could make $80,000 in cash almost immediately within a few weeks. Our sales cycle to land a school is less than a month, because it's so clear, the value proposition is so compelling. So let's say within a couple months, they might make 8x their money that they put in. That doesn't even account for the fact that as a company, every one of those comes in, $1 to $5 million on those. We quickly scale to 100 million or $1 billion in revenue. It's not in the number of schools out there. Even if we didn't do anything else but schools, if we got 1% of the ESSER money, that's almost $2 billion of a market. So I think there's a lot of ways to potentially make money. Obviously, we can't represent that anything's our guarantees, all the rest of that kind of thing. But there are multiple ways that somebody can get involved. And I think we told you during the Unicorn Show, one of the things that probably makes us unique is we didn't have to raise the money. We've been cash flow positive since inception. We've been trying to double our production capacity and ability to meet demand every few months or every 2 to 3 months as it is. But this really turbocharges it. So yes, we're accepting of that capital. And more importantly, we love getting new evangelists and ambassadors on board. And if they're also an investor in the company, you can just see their involvement and excitement over it as they go forward.
Yeah, and talking about how you're trying to enter the market and how and a very important point, you've been cash flow positive since inception. I'd like to start getting a sense of how does the future of the company look like, and how about innovation? How about a culture where you go beyond the current products and maybe into new alternatives, and also why not prepare for the next pandemic? How do you work around those issues?
Well, we are constantly innovating, and a lot of that is because the science is catching up with the understanding of how air moves throughout a building. What these other tools that we've seen. How does the air from a ductwork system work? What parts of the room does it hit? Ours is going to hit all the area that the light hits instantaneously. So we're reducing the viral load in almost every corner of the room the entire time. Ductwork works very differently. They do different things. So there's a lot of innovation that I think can take place around how building layouts are put in place. We're very involved with most of the leading organizations, the IUVA, which is the International Ultraviolet Light Association, ASHRAE, which determines kind of HVAC effectiveness, and I think we've been a leading innovator in the space again since long before COVID, right? But now all of our experience and all these installations. There's a lot that can be told when you're in an installation for a year, and then you hear that, wow, they've had no transmission. So clearly we're doing it right. Now, can we be even better? Probably, right? So then we're working with literally the top subject matter experts around the world, academics, industry, to say, okay, we'd like to also do this, and we'd like to release this product. So whereas our first product was more like a smoke detector that fit on the ceiling, and it was, by day 2, nobody even remembers it's there, other than the fact it is cleaning the air and the surfaces all around them. When we started working with the Pentagon, they wanted something immediately deployable, right? So now we have something with a plug-in. And
that's what we see right behind you, right?
That's what's right behind us. So this is just on a tripod, an extendable pole that can go up to the ceiling. And so it's immediately deployable. So now you've got situations like, well, what if you had election booths? What if you had Department of Motor Vehicles? What if you had people getting tested for COVID or in hospitals? They needed to have something and they wanted to move it around, right? So now you've got that. Now we still need to be careful about exactly how these devices are deployed. There are guidelines for the amount of dosage. one of our competitive advantages is we are very, very good at knowing what all those guidelines are and sticking with them and being out in front of that. So as a trusted resource, people will come to us and know that our solutions are safe and are going to give them the most effective solution that they can get within those guidelines.
PJ, how does the competitive landscape looks like? What are the protections that your company has in terms of the copycats or companies that will, leverage from all the research R&D that you have done and will try to come up with something similar to Far UV?
Sure. Well, there's a couple of different ways to look at that. There's actually quite a bit of know-how into how to make our designs, and whether that's in the components themselves or the programming of the devices to make sure they work well. Some aspects of that could be potentially reverse engineered, other ones cannot, or it's very difficult to. We're constantly innovating. We've got a design cycle of about 75 to 90 days. So if somebody's trying to copy us, they're working on the original iPad instead of the iPad 4. So that helps quite a bit to be agile and to be out there in front of. We've got more customers, I think, because we have more installations and more different kinds of installations than anybody out there. And I think that's led to a lot of insights into what's going to be the next generation or the one beyond that. And so we've got a team of engineers that's constantly working on that. We do have intellectual property. We have a technology and licensing agreement with Boeing, where we have several patents pending on that. We have our own other IP initiatives in-house as well. So there's some level of protection that's kind of the standard. But right now, in a time where literally people are dying every day, speed is essential. And right now we are made in the United States. And so there are some advantages to that. Trust that. We're the only vendor that's got national stock numbers, which means we're a trusted critical supply component for the U.S. military in that. And nobody else is probably ever going to have that in our space. And so it's an important thing. There's a lot that goes around that. I don't want to say nobody can ever make a knockoff tablet or something to try to compete with an iPad. But I think what we're finding is at the end of the day, it's kind of a health related item. It's not a medical device, but it's a health related item, and people want to go with a trusted source. They don't want to buy something off, an e-commerce website that may have originated from somewhere else where they didn't have that kind of expertise or attention to detail.
And what does it mean exactly that the government gave you a vendor number, correct? This is that you are a supplier for the government. What does it mean for normal people? What kind of clearance you have to have? What kind of protection it can have for your sales cycle? What an impact for the businesses it can mean?
Well, most importantly, a lot of government agencies have requirements to competitively bid all of their supplies above a certain amount. When you have a national stock number, when you're on a GSA schedule, or when you're on a cooperative contract, all of which we either have or are deep in the process of having, it allows for people to immediately source something, not put something in the paper for 30 days, requesting other bids to come in, and then they have to do another 30 to 69. Nobody wants to wait 90 days for protection for what they've got when they know that this is the one that's already chosen by the Pentagon and multiple hospitals and the rest of that. They want to source it. And so that source aspect is actually pretty critical. And that's a lot of what a national stock number would do. And it's also a kind of an emblem, like a good seal of approval type thing when the U.S. government adopts your technology and solution in that. So we found that to be very compelling overseas as well. Even if they have somewhat different requirements in their own jurisdiction, knowing that this has already been a chosen solution by the U.S. government has been valuable.
I see. I'd like to go into some recent reading. McKinsey, the consultancy, includes counts as value for stakeholders a strong environmental and social proposition. How do you feel? Well, how do you feel the production of the far UV products is in terms of the environment and social as a proposition, PJ?
Well, that's interesting. We actually aren't asked that as much, but we have very strong benefits on that side. So one thing that is not lost on people who have previously looked at traditional UV solutions, which is 254 nanometer lamps, they're mercury bulbs, and mercury is a toxic chemical. So if there is a breakage or something like that, some people won't have them in their facility for that exact reason. Far UV does not have any of that. So our trademark name is Krypton Lighting, and it's because there are you can't make 222 nanometer light without krypton gas. And so it's krypton chloride gas, which is in our, they're both inert, they're both, non-toxic, toxic type chemicals. So we have a pretty significant environmental advantage right there. As far as social, we are very involved with installing in homeless shelters and a lot of these areas where people who do not have, levels of protection that otherwise might be afforded to them are now getting actually superior levels of protection. That's kind of keeping our armed services safe. We're now seeing that in areas throughout the economy, and it's not just a thing for the wealthy to install. It's protecting people everywhere. I see eventually that the air cleanliness. I think there will be new regulation around clean air in buildings and vehicles, particularly in buildings. And it's not going to require our product, but our advantage is of the three things that are typically recommended by the CDC and ASHRAE, which is UV, adding more ventilation, just simply blowing your air out and putting outside air in, or HEPA filters. Harvard has proven that we're by far the lowest cost solution while being actually the most effective in terms of the amount of kill we can get in a space. So I think if you're the most effective and you're the lowest cost solution, I think that's going to really significantly improve the ability not only for, wealthy type companies or things like that to evolve, but really get it throughout the economy and throughout all our buildings, particularly our public spaces. And while there's been a lot of relief funding in the United States, we're also seeing a lot of foreign governments trying to, everybody's trying to solve this problem, right? And it's important for everybody to be safe. And we provide a great tool for that.
And PJ, how does it play for small and medium business owners? Let's say that we have a person out there that has a daycare or a fitness center. Can they buy your product? Is there any way that this solution is available for them? How much it costs? What is it in your strategy for the near future to make it accessible for people?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we are rapidly expanding a sales and distribution network. And so we're doing that in a variety of ways. We are engaging with the traditional lighting sales reps and distributors across the world. And then we're also engaging directly with people who want to be reps or even just referrers, as we mentioned earlier in the show, to whether it's their school or their hospital or their transit authority. There's a bunch of different paths we can take. And it's interesting because in some cases, people would say, well, I really want to be protected and I want to be the only one who can provide this. But it's almost like there's so many opportunities that almost nobody runs into each other anyway on these kind of things. And we do track that to try to protect the people who we're working with to the greatest extent possible. But it's if you're interested in getting our product, you can either call us direct, and either we will refer you to a sales rep or distributor in an area, or if we don't have one, we will help you directly to make sure that you can get our solution as well. Our products, whether it's the Krypton 11, Krypton 36, or the Shield behind me, are $2,500 MSRP, our kind of list price, and we have discounts for volume orders. So if it's a volume order, we can work with you on that. And we want to get it out there, and we want people who are excited to be evangelists in this and to spread it to their communities, because it really, really can help. Anywhere there's higher traffic, there's higher risk, and this can provide a significant impact.
Yes.
You definitely sound that way. Well, I would like to move on to the next topic, and I want to capitalize both your experiences, Sylvie and PJ. IPOs, exit strategies, ways for investors to capitalize on the far UV investment. I wouldn't know who to address first, but Sylvie, I would like just to get an opener from you and get an idea and a little bit of context, and then we ask PJ to tell us about the far UV story.
Well, as entrepreneurs, we're always trying to look for ways to create value for our shareholders, because they are instrumental for our strategy to make our dreams come true. So in our case, we created a path with different initiatives, from secondary markets to taking the company public, and also combining with a very open and straightforward and transparent communication strategy. So the value that we create for our shareholders are the opportunity to have their stock liquid, and also, as PJ said, like creating opportunities so they can partner with us in helping us grow. So we are co-building with them. But most importantly, because here we are looking for people who are considering becoming part of the extended far UV team by investing in the company and helping them take to the market at the scale. I will yield to PJ to give us some visibility and light on how he is planning to generate a liquidity event for his investors and what is the value for them.
Sure. So it's interesting. There's definitely been more of a democratization of private equity globally, and Unicorn Hunters is absolutely a good example of it, where they're providing this access to these deals that otherwise, companies like ours may have thought, well, I could find angel investors, I could go find a venture capital firm, I could work on a strategic deal with a large corporate partner that we might be working with, and it kind of opened my eyes a little bit about how advantageous this could be, particularly in our case where awareness was such an important aspect of it. And as we've kind of dug under the curtains and gotten more visibilities, we're also getting contacted by other forms that could quickly lead to liquidity. I don't know how familiar you are with the SPAC market, the special purpose acquisition corps. Those are ways where a company like ours could potentially become public in a few months instead of a longer term roadshow. And we're a perfect fit for that kind of opportunity. Not only because we can use additional capital to just leverage our existing demand and build up additional production capacity, but because by becoming public faster, we raise awareness, right? So it's got this compounding effect. So the more awareness we build, the faster and greater our company is going to be. So when I considered the Unicorn Hunters path initially, before we even started, I thought, this is really there's something to this, because ultimately my previous companies I almost didn't want to take public. I thought, what, I want to get acquired because I don't want to go through the hassle of going public. This company, however, gets probably a 10x benefit from being public. So it makes all the sense in the world for us to go there. And now, whether that's because now we have more shareholders and we become qualified for a direct public listing, it's a fascinating opportunity. But the SPAC opportunity is really interesting to us right now. We've also been talking to significant large investors around the globe, sovereign wealth funds, where there's other strategic opportunities there. So you can never have a crystal ball as to exactly when you'd have the liquidity, but in our case, the stars align that suggest that a sooner event would be advantageous for us and all stakeholders in our company. So I could see that rapidly developing.
We have a question from the audience, Adriana Gonzalez. What advice would you give other entrepreneurs looking for growth? I think it's a question for both of you, Sylvie and PJ. Sylvie, can you go first?
Well, I will take from PJ comments. I think it's the opportunity to co-build with thousands of investors around the world, give you people with skin on the game that will be there working hand in hand with you to make your company succeed. So access to capital is probably one of the most challenging things that entrepreneurs have to face when you go the traditional route that we are taught in the business school, like go to accelerator, get a VC, then go to private equity, then probably go to an IPO or SPAC or an M&A. We are missing a massive opportunity there, the power of people, and the power of people who can supercharge your company in many more different aspects. So one of the things that I feel extremely strong about Unicorn Hunters and what we created is the opportunity not only to democratize the access to growth capital for entrepreneurs, because for us entrepreneurs, capital is the vital fuel that we need to make our dreams come true, our dreams of impact come true, but also the opportunity to give people, normal people, people that otherwise wouldn't have the chance to be part of something big, the same opportunity that venture capitalists have, democratizing the access to this future SpaceX, Facebook, before they are too expensive and too big. So this is something that I will say, like, think outside the box. As women, I always like to say, skirt the rules. Don't break them, just bend them. Think laterally. Use your emotional intelligence to see alternative ways of getting things done. And giving people the power to empower you is one of them.
And PJ?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo Silvina's thoughts there. It's actually interesting, and something lost in a little bit of this is that angel investors, which is largely what we're talking about, it's individual investors in many cases, non-institutional investors, often don't do as well in a traditional venture capital financing scenario, because a venture model often implies that there's going to need to be several successive rounds of financing to get to an IPO. And the way that a lot of the terms are structured are that earlier rounds get heavily diluted or some aspects like that through it. And it's a little bit of a longer discussion and a complicated story. But if everybody has the same type of equity, which is what we're talking about here, where the new stakeholders have the exact same type of equity as I do, it's very beneficial for both founders and those individual investors, versus in a venture round where the last round, almost most of the spoils go to the last round, 4 rounds to get somewhere. Not everybody has the capability of putting in 100 and then 250 and then 500 and then $1 million, right, on an individual level. So if you're kind of all on that individual same playing field, it's really advantageous for investors or private investors, non-institutional investors, to participate in this kind of opportunity. That's my opinion.
Absolutely agree with that. The fact that with this model you issue the same kind of equity make an amazingly different opportunity for investors, because everybody has the same type of equity, the same type of liquidation rights, and it protects investors out there, because with the traditional system, they are always like lag behind and killed by the big fish, and their participation, even though they bet earlier, it gets significantly diluted. So it's a game changer for the entrepreneur, because the entrepreneur can get the capital that they need to take their company to scale, but also for the investors, because it's an equalizer. It's a democratizing factor to make it everyone and money's work at the same level. And taking these companies like FARUV to the public implies that we are putting the companies that VCs will traditionally look up available for people just like you and me that are out there and have extra capital to take advantage of the massive opportunity that these companies that has been highly vetted can bring to the table and can bring for them.
Sylvie, we're running out of time, and before we close, I want to make sure that my super co-host, do you have anything else to add? Any more questions? Because we're really running out of time. Any more questions for PJ, Sylvie?
I will have 1,000 questions for PJ, but no, I know that we are behind, so I will pass on that, and I will invite people to ask PJ directly in social media, or reach out to FarUV or Unicorn Hunters if they want to learn more, read their PPM, and invest in the company.
Excellent, excellent. Well, before we close the show today, we're going to thank very much PJ and Sylvie. As usual, it's great sharing the stage with you. There's something I have to tell everybody, and that is that we're really proud of being a part of FarUV's journey and our ability to giving access to millions of investors to the company. You know, one thing, Unicorn Hunters celebrated a milestone of more than 12 million views, and we're just getting started. So I'll tell you one thing, if you're watching now, don't miss the premiere of the next episode next Monday, August the 23rd on unicornhunters.com. A new company will present a new product, and it will be, of course, as usual, a selected investment opportunity. Sylvie, always great to share the stage with you, PJ.
And this is Money Talks, where we bring the most interesting people to help you put your money to work. And in our next episode of Money Talks, we are talking to accelerators to show you how they work and what they are looking for a project to invest. So you have also the other side of the coin and learn how to make your money work for you.
Excellent. And well, we're going to meet next time. Until then, don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, especially on LinkedIn. And on behalf of our wonderful production team, thank you very much for following us, and we'll see you next time. And PJ, we'll stay in touch and we'll follow your story. See you next time, everybody. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.